So this is the fifth video that I'm doing on the Hickman piano action that we'll be working on this Mason and Hamlin 1930 Model RA. It's a player, it's got an Ampico B in it. And I've been studying this item here for the better part of a day, and I have not read all the information that's available out there yet, but just some observations that I really wanted to point out. So this happens to be key 49 that came out of the piano and the action parts as well. Up above, I've actually got a hammer and shank out of Mason and Hamlin. It's an obel item, and for number 49. So you can clearly see the difference in size on the hammers between a vintage original and what the obel is at this point. Couple of things to point out. This particular capstan is very unusual. It's got a groove. This clip has got a feature where you can slide that clip into here. It positively locks, and you'll notice that there's a crown here, which is a little different than typical capstans. That point actually goes into an indent that's on this clip, and so it positively locks it in the groove and into the clip. So the action is married directly to the key, and anytime the key goes up or down, it's pulling the action and vice versa. Next thing I wanted to point out is I noticed, and I looked at this under a microscope, there appears to be some wax. It might be a paraffin or it might be tallow. I'm not really sure, but there's some sort of lubrication in this balance spring at both locations. The pin joints on this action are really very tight in all locations. The only exception is this joint here, and I wasn't sure why that is, but you know, when I looked at it further, it's actually very stable in the up and down position, which is the direction of travel, because you know that's where the key is going to force the action on this driven member. But side to side, and there's a lot of slop in there. And when I looked at the construction, it's actually made up of three components. There is a felt bushing that goes through the hole, which goes around the pin and in between this wooden member. And then there's two washers. There's felt washers on either side. And I can't say I know for sure why that is, but I'm theorizing that given the fact that this is all tied together, that there needs some freedom of movement somewhere to allow a slight misadjustment to allow this thing to change in relationship to this member, which anchors the rest of this action, because this is bolted down to a solid member on the frame of the action itself. One thing you'll notice is that there's particular attention paid to the orientation of the grains in these members. As you might guess, they're stronger in one orientation than another. So this particular member here, it's one piece. It's a one-piece member made out of two components, and you can see the transition here, where there is a member that has a grain running in this direction, and then this top member the grain is oriented in this member, and the two pieces are a tongue and groove type of arrangement, which is then glued together to form one piece. The other thing to notice here, and I'll zoom out a little bit, is that the relative overall length of the hammer and shank on each one of these conventional action and Hickman action is roughly the same. However, the actual member here for the shank that goes to the hammer is substantially smaller than a conventional action, probably by an inch. Whatever this distance is here, that's basically how much shorter that is. So as we try to decide in the restoration how to recreate some of the components that have been damaged or missing in the original action, we're going to have to probably adapt some current action components in order to fit them into the technical requirements for the Hickman action. So that might be done by possibly, putting this here and then just cutting off the shank. So then you have this, you'll take the knuckle off and fill in that groove. But then you have to deal with the fact that there's a difference in, the square section versus the round section here. That would probably not normally be an element to think about, but because this thing is spring loaded and it has something to do with the weight of this particular driven member, the hammer and the shank, that might change the placement of the spring in the hole. So there's a lot of things going on here that we're going to have to get involved in the restoration of this thing. But I just wanted to give an update on the action and some of the things that we're finding. I have made some calls put a call into and spoke to a person today at Wessel, Nickel and Gross, and they forwarded my message to Mason and Hamlin, the technical person there, and I'm hoping to be able to talk to him a little bit more about this particular unique pin joint. So I'll keep you updated, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.